the most important thing is to see these kids really be able to turn the tide and to know that we have a lot of families that are marginalized, that are underpopulated or underserved or underfunded or have insecurities in every population or every sense of the word.
Mm-hmm.
And so our ultimate goal for them as well, regardless if they go to college or not, that doesn't matter. It's making them whole and helping them really feel secure in who they are, whatever trade they choose to be, however profession they want to do. We're here to support them.
Welcome to the Nonprofit Podcast Network. Our purpose and passion are simple: to highlight the incredible nonprofits that make our communities stronger. Each episode is a chance for these organizations to tell their story in their words, sharing not just what they do, but why it matters to the people they serve, to their supporters, and to all of us who believe in the power of community. Through podcasting, we hope to amplify their voices, inspire connection, and give them one more tool to impact the hearts of donors, partners, and neighbors alike. This work is made possible through the generous support of our incredible partners: CapTrust, offering fiduciary advice for endowments and foundations; Western Health Advantage, a local not-for-profit health plan that believes healthcare is more than coverage. It's about caring; CORE, executive leadership and comprehensive support services. They work in it so you can work on it. And Five Star Bank, a local, trusted advisor to community nonprofits for over 25 years. If you're thinking, wait, haven't we heard Kids First on the show before? You're right. Kids First was the very first organization featured on this network in our prototype during the pandemic. They came back again for a formal episode, and today marks their third appearance because so much has changed in even the last 2 years. Kids First has been serving Placer County families for 37 years, but what you'll hear in this conversation is a nonprofit that isn't just surviving, it's evolving in real time to meet a community need that's getting more complex, more urgent, and in many cases, more traumatic. Debbie Gabelich is CEO and leads Kids First as a family resource center in the fullest sense of that phrase, because they don't hand families a list of phone numbers and send them on their way. They walk with them. Housing insecurity, food insecurity, health insurance, translation support, court needs, transportation barriers. Kids First has built a model around one core idea: stabilize the family to keep kids safe. And they're expanding clinical work, including counseling and trauma recovery. The reality of what they're seeing right now: deeper trauma, longer engagement, and a widening gap in services for youth, especially ages 10 to 17, and even into the 25-year range as foster youth emancipate into adulthood with nowhere to go. You'll want to hear the bold, specific vision Debbie sets for the future. This episode is a powerful reminder of demonstrating we can when others say, sorry, we can't. Debbie Gabelich, welcome to the Nonprofit Podcast Network again.
Thanks, Jeff. It's good to be here.
Some astute fans of the program may recognize this as a familiar organization on the network. And they would be correct, because you've not only been the first organization to be on the network and the second time, but this is the third time because so much has changed since our last episode in early 2024. Here we are now, updating who you are with what has changed, how the organization has grown in so many ways since we spoke last. And I'd like you to share what really the basic services are that Kids First provides.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much. We are beyond honored to get this opportunity and to share what we do in the community. The full scope of what we do, we are first and foremost a family resource center, and the largest sense of the word. So a typical resource center, you would call in, someone would hand you a list and says, here is where you can go. Our staff doesn't do that. We have a bank of 12 case managers, and they walk with every family. So we do a quick synopsis of family need and a plan for them. And it can be everything from housing insecurity, food insecurity. If they don't have insurance, we get them insurance. If they need help with a doctor's appointment, we do that. Probably in around 62% of our clientele, English is a second language. So being able to help with translation, making sure they've got their doctor visits, if they need to get to court, if there are anything that they need to make the family whole, we're there for them. Many times they'll come back. We can get them up to a space where they're level, and because they're already at that very vulnerable state, one slip of anything, someone getting sick, it could be, they lost any loss of any income, and they are right back with us because they're, again, just so vulnerable. So we work with whatever we can to help them stabilize. That can be searching for jobs. So we've got a job readiness class. We do financial literacy. We do parenting education, anything we can to help the family become whole again.
And you say that one little thing, we don't think about it, but it could be as simple as the battery died in the car.
Yeah.
They don't have an extra $150.
Yep.
It's that thin.
It's that thin. And on top of the family resources, we also do counseling. So we have an entire group of counselors that help on all different modalities, depending on the level of trauma that the family has. We are the group that manages the sex trafficking for teens. It's actually youth to teens, whereas some of the other groups that are out there that are phenomenal, like Three Strands is great. They do an amazing awareness campaign. My team's the only team that's on the street. So I have 2 people, just 2, and they manage this year 158 kids that are in that world, which is really frightening because that's in just one county. So we do that.
And that's just what we know about.
That's exactly. We also have in-home visitation, so we work with the 0 to 5 population. We have subset of folks inside of the children's system of care and in the domestic violence centers. And any of those families that have any needs whatsoever, our team is there to bring them in, help them again, and to ensure those kiddos. Our whole goal is to avert, at least minimize, right, the abuse or the neglect that's happening, mitigate it, so that we get these children an opportunity to break the cycle. You just don't want to see them again, and we do. We see families that mom or dad had been in the system as children, and now they're back because they didn't have any other – that is the model they had. So really trying to teach them that there is a better way. There's different ways. It's okay to ask for help so that we don't have their children show up at our doors in another 15 to 20 years.
Well, and it's not the worst case scenario because at least they know they have a place to go.
Absolutely. And I think that's a lot of our families will tell you that, that they hear about us when they come in, hey, this is the place you go when you need help. And they make it maybe it's just therapy they think, or one of their kiddos is in some type of duress and they'll come to us for that support. But then again, it could be any type of insecurity that comes into play, and it's, are you able to help here? And we do. And so we just, again, stand with them, check in regularly. They may not need us for a length of period of time, but they always know that we're there should the needs arise, because our first and foremost priority are those kids, keeping the kids safe.
Right. What if there are a couple of the programs that are the most popular, and it almost sounds awkward to say it that way. Popular sounds like, oh, this is a good thing. This is my program. Yeah. But are there a couple of programs that you see a greater demand on than others?
Yeah, well, I think our research – so we have a sister organization that's similar, that does very similar work. They are heavier on the counseling side. We're heavier on the resource side. But the difference truly is that we're synonymous for our staff literally being there with them. There's no shame associated. It is that family resource side of our house is really – I think people don't realize that there's 2,700 families come through our doors. And so ensuring that those families – and then if you take the kids that go along with the 2,700 families, how many thousands of lives that we are literally changing, that probably is what we're most known for. But our clinicians are some of the best. And I think what they've been able to do and where we've seen the shift really from the last time I was here is, when I took the position, it was this is a house that does mild to moderate trauma. Perhaps you're struggling with a kiddo who's a teen. You're not sure if they have anxiety and depression, looking for signs. And that, I don't think I've seen one of those in almost 2 years. We have really gotten to a much higher level of trauma, not only the child but the family. We see so many of our families now. What COVID did, it's done. It's not, though. So many jobs were eliminated, right? So now our parents are doing 2 and 3 jobs to make up the job that they lost. And so now you're looking for someone to care for your child. You're going to hope that that person loves them and cares for them like you do, and often that's not the case. So then we're dealing with the trauma that's infused on those kiddos, helping these parents get back to a life of not feeling guilt, of getting them to a point where they can talk through it and the children are healing. But that takes time. So I think our resource center is just really known for how the doors are open. And I think even in the community, I do get made fun of because if folks go to another agency and they're told, oh, sorry, we can't bill that insurance, we can't help you here, call Kids First. They don't say no. And although I don't, it's, there's limitations of how far I can do that without it affecting us financially to serve the population. But my thought process is if I don't, who's going to? And what happens to those kids? And if we aren't paying attention to that one subset, how far is that going to reach? So in my opinion, I'll eat that all day long because it gives me the opportunity to give those kids a chance that they would have not had otherwise. And I don't see how turning away a family because I can't bill their insurance is really going to help the community or that family. And
in the long run, too, you're going to see them back.
Exactly.
If you don't help now, they're going to come back later.
Yep.
Right. And it's going to be worse.
And it's going to be worse. And that's a huge problem.
How do families learn of Kids First? Other than you've been around for 37 years, that's a plus.
That's big. Most of our referrals come from the schools, the hospital systems that are around, other agencies. Like First Five is a huge. The 2 referrals I was talking about today came straight from them. Can you help this extra family? We also have folks self-refer, so they do know on their own. And I think right now it's been a lot more word of mouth that's coming through. Of hey, I know this organization. They do that. So a lot of our corporate partners now are making sure that they get that word out too. In particular, if they see something happening in their own world of employees and/or they hear about it, they're sending them our way. So any way that we get the families, I'm fine with, as long as they come through the doors.
Right.
Yeah.
You rely on a lot of different organizations.
Yeah.
Because they both feed and they support. And by feed, I don't mean food. They feed you clientele for services. Who are some of the key organizations you work with?
First Five is our biggest partner, and that's for our 0 to 5 population in our home visitation program. So that is really where we work with a lot of the moms that are in that program. Didn't have examples, right? There was no nurturing. They didn't really know what to do. And so this program really ensures those kiddos have a good start, that they can go into school and be able to be successful and thrive. We also work with the CalFresh program that's all inside of that, and the R2R, which is the Road to Resilience. More of those moms maybe had gotten down a habit path of some sort. And so we help work them through out of that. That's our largest one. We also work directly with the county, Placer County. So the Children's System of Care is our leading partner. I think when I started, we were the 98.5 percentile mark of our funding came all from county contracts. And that really frightened me because like we're seeing today, when federal, state, and local funding gets adjusted, if we can't make up the gap, you cease to exist. And so we've really expanded where those revenues are coming from. So we are even more and more of our dollars are coming from grantors or foundations. Those folks are now referring folks to us as well because they may work with sister organizations or other CBOs in town that say CBO. It's a community business partner opportunity. It's nonprofits, really. It's when it comes to community partners. And so I think that has shifted. It shifts where people are coming from for us now. So, and a lot more from the schools. We're seeing more and more come in from the school systems than we did before.
Which is not a bad thing when we get to funding. We'll talk about it in just a second. What would a 360 look like from somebody who's entered the organization, goes through a process, could be a child or parent, and comes out? Maybe a success story or somebody so-and-so entered, here's what it looked like, here's what we did, they were with us for X number of months. And
there we go. I have a perfect story. So we have a young girl. She was 7 when her parents came to us. She was 7 years old. She and her brother both came in for therapy, lots of trauma. It was a divorce that happened in the family, but the divorce led to many other attributes, which caused a lot of trauma. It's very volatile. And so we kept both the kids in therapy for a length of time and then touched base with the family, kind of kept touch with them. And all three, including mom. Mom came through therapy as well. They went through the cycle. They felt they were good. Again, our case management kind of touched base with them on and off for a little bit just to check, and everybody seemed to be fine, which was great. We love those stories. And 2 years ago, we were doing our luncheon, and we were looking for the community to come out. We were going to do a fashion show with it. And so we made a call to Miss Placer County to see if we could get the queens to come out, the little princesses to come and walk in the fashion show. And the gal who was Miss Placer County answered the phone, and she said, I'm a kid's first kid. And she was the little girl.
Oh, wow.
And not only – now she's in college at Oklahoma State. And so she came in and told the entire group of people that she knew that there's no way she would be where she was today without knowing that there was a safety net there that was always going to catch her, and that these people made them feel like they were part of their family. They loved them like that. They took care of them. They insured them with kid gloves to hand these two children back out into a world. And in fact, she came back again and did our luncheon this year for us because she wanted to expand and really talk. Now that she's finished her degree, and she kind of felt that she had a little more insight as to how it really affected her ability to public speak, the ability to talk to people and ask for things and say it's okay to ask for help. And the day she had come for the luncheon, she got word that she got into grad school. And for that, to know that a lot of our kids, especially in the children's welfare system, barely get out of high school, let alone go to college and graduate. And to be able to say that this child went on to grad school, for her, every speech she makes has us in it. And that this was the base of her, not only the love of her parents, her mom for sure, who was her advocate, which brought her to us, but truly knowing that there was an army behind her. She had a whole family that was outside of their blood family that was there to cheer her on and to protect her and to look after her. And she's one of thousands that we do that for every day. And I think that the most important thing is to see these kids really be able to turn the tide and to know that she won't be in the same situation. Her kids won't. That's the hope for her. And I think that's one of many. She actually had a lot of maybe opportunities that some of our other families don't. We have a lot of families that are marginalized, that are underpopulated or underserved or underfunded or have insecurities in every population or every sense of the word. And so, our ultimate goal for them as well, regardless if they go to college or not, that doesn't matter. It's making them whole and helping them really feel secure in who they are, whatever trade they choose to be, however profession they want to do, we're here to support them. And that is the piece of, if they can tell another family, knock on their door.
Right.
Come see them. And we see that. We'll have folks that will say, I know you might have a lot of people right now. We'll wait. We'll wait to see your folks instead of going to a different agency, simply because it's not just a piece of paper we hand them with the numbers of the resources they need. We literally will make the call with them. We follow up to ensure that their kids got to school. How are you doing on transportation? Oh, the battery's dead? You're right. Let's make sure you get to the mechanic. And are you good? Great. Do you have the ride to get to therapy? So all of those things that I think a lot of folks just don't associate. That's what we do. It takes a lot per family to really take care of them and ensure that they're good.
Well, especially when you have language barriers, to add to the complexity of that whole discussion, every one of those elements.
So many languages now. So it's not just Spanish speaking. That's still our biggest prevalent, but we've got a large group of Farsi folks, and we have folks that are coming in that are Ukrainian and Russian, and we have a big group that came in from Turkey. So I think it's just looking at who's coming, where the needs are, what kind of languages are there, and how does my staff help if we don't speak that given language. So it's finding the right translator who can come in and work with us, because it's nothing odder than having someone that you don't know sitting in therapy with you, listening to the therapist tell you what to do. But we work really hard at that to make sure that those families feel comfortable, and again, they feel secure in who they're talking to. There's no sense of shame. There's no sense of insecurity. They just know we're there with no string, just like a parent. It's unconditional. It's unconditional to want to help every family and to get them to a space that they're healthy.
And this is a change from where you were historically. Not only have the services changed and the scope of service and the depth of service in the community, what about numbers of people?
Actually, I think before I came, I think there was much more, and this happens to several of the other agencies in town as well. You were getting them in just as fast as you could. It was more of a numbers game.
Just move them through.
Yep. But because the cases have become more traumatic, you can't move people through it that fast. And so we've probably seen less, or I can't tout the 4,000, but the 2,800 families that we brought in, those 2,800 were really cared for. So I just assume not worry about the balloon of figure, because I think that number was almost like a cattle call just
Sure.
to be able to tout it. And now all our services are very meaningful. We know that there's a beginning, middle, and end, and we can show the impact when we're completed.
Is there an average length of engagement with the agency?
Yeah. So for most of our clients prior, but before the shift of the last 5 years, really, most families, because we're, again, mild to moderate, and everything was covered from the county. 12 weeks was the max. So a family would come in, we'd get them for 12 weeks, they case managed, and they'd have therapy, and it would kind of walk through that system. Some of our case managed group that maybe doesn't have therapy, they can stay with us a little longer, but it was typically 12 weeks. Now the cases are so much more significant. Most of our families are with us between 4 to 7 months. So it's a lot longer of a time where we're with them because, again, at the end of 12 weeks, did we really solve what's happening? Did we get to the base of it? No. So we keep them as long as we need to ensure that they're at a space that they can walk forward.
And that's the highest priority. It's not
Absolutely.
getting them out and through because they're going to return.
That's right.
But if you can really help mitigate and understand what the situation is and maybe alleviate or at least the awareness of it and how to deal with it and manage it, they're likely to succeed.
Yep.
And in many cases, you won't see them again, which is a good thing.
That's what we want, right?
Yes.
I mean, we'd love to hear the successes, but ultimately we want them to feel that they've got this. And a lot of times our families will, maybe they won't come all the way back in for services, but we'll have the classes that we've been trying to do in support groups, we do those specifically for maybe some of our folks that they've already finished services, but when we put together financial literacy classes or we're doing the job readiness or we do anxiety classes, and sometimes we'll do domestic violence for kids and for adults, like what to look for. We see a lot of our families come back for those follow-up type of classes that we do. Maybe they need a refresher, or maybe they can see something starting, and if they do this, then they can, again, mitigate it from getting to the point where they really need to bring the kids back in for therapy. So I think a good chunk of our services are things that people have to come to see us for, so if there's a court order on it. But the other half of those folks are really those that feel it's helping, and they come to a co-parenting class. When we do our Forever Fathers and there's therapists in the room and they kind of walk them through the scenarios and give them tools to take home with them. That's what we see. That's the positive. Or these come back. It's not that they need it, but the camaraderie that they get from another dad that they think, oh, gosh, I'm not the only one. That happens all the time. And I think having that piece of togetherness with another family where you just don't feel you're the only one going through this is really helpful for them sometimes.
Well, and there's a support. There's a peer group there that you're like me.
Yep.
You make me feel more comfortable when that happens.
Yeah.
We'll be back with Debbie Gabelich of Kids First right after a few words from those who make this program possible.
I'm James Beckwith, President and CEO of 5 Star Bank. We're dedicated to supporting nonprofit organizations who advocate for the strength, resilience, and vitality of those they serve. When nonprofit organizations thrive, our community does too. By supporting the Nonprofit Podcast Network, 5 Star Bank is amplifying the voices and meaningful impact of our nonprofit community. We're 5 Star Bank, a trusted nonprofit partner. How can we help you?
We are really excited to be part of the family and contribute to the work that you all are doing. CORE provides fractional and interim executive services, along with comprehensive back-office solutions that go into our client sites and do the work to give them the capacity they need in order to move through transitions, whether that's planned or unplanned. Or companies also work with our accounting and finance, back-office solutions, human resources, technology, and administration. The reason why our back office solutions add value is because we save them time and money, anywhere from 20 to 30% of what they would spend on that back office solution. We work in it so they can actually work on it. CXORE.com and contact me directly at DTEAT@CXORE.com.
If you're interested in learning more about how CORE may help your organization, visit CXORE.com.
Hello, this is Scott Thomas with Cap Trust in our Sacramento office. I specialize in working with local nonprofits and associations. Annually, we survey private and public nonprofit organizations across the country to better understand challenges they see in today's environment. In our more recent survey, we heard concerns about proper board governance, mission-aligned investment, and how to implement alternative investments. If you would like a copy of the survey or to discuss your organization, look me up, Scott Thomas at captrust.com.
At Western Health Advantage, healthcare isn't just a service. It's a shared value. As a nonprofit leader, you need a health plan that understands the importance of mission-driven work. Western Health Advantage is a local, not-for-profit health plan that supports organizations like yours with affordable, flexible coverage options for your team. But what truly sets them apart is their commitment to community, supporting nonprofits like the American Heart Association, Sacramento Ballet, and the Crocker Art Museum's Pay What You Wish Sundays. With access to top-tier providers and dedicated local support, Western Health Advantage is more than a health plan. It's a partner in your purpose. Explore your options today at westernhealth.com. Western Health Advantage, healthcare with heart, designed for those who give back.
Let's talk a little bit about funding. Certainly it's changed over the course of the time that you've been there, if I'm not mistaken, from maybe 2.2 over the course of the last years to 3.5 or more today.
Yeah, we are. This year, we're estimated at 3.6. And that's
million,
low.
By the way, folks, million.
3.6 million, yeah.
We both left the digit off the back there.
Yeah, it's the shift has come. And again, I think that if we look at, we couldn't do it without our county partners. We're so grateful to have those contracts in place. But we also saw that, to no fault of theirs, the contracts don't cover the full staff. And I think looking at the level of what these clients need, I needed a certain skill set of bodies that can really make a difference. So we're hiring folks that have a stronger set of skills, number one. In order to keep them, those contracts don't cover their salaries, not even 70% the most times. So we literally knew we had a gap. And then we had other services that we wanted to cover that aren't getting covered by state, federal anymore, that are going by the wayside, but we see the value of prevention. So we hired a development director, and we have a development team, and that team has really helped change the landscape from the 98.6 that we were coming from contracts. This year we're just below 80. And next year we're hoping to get to the 70 mark. My ultimate goal is being 50-50, because if we don't count on, we're not going to get hurt if we lose something big, which is what caused the downfall before I came, is they lost contracts and didn't have a way to recoup it, and they just kept falling. Yep, there was nothing else there, so there was no way to get out. And now we have really amped up our abilities to write those grants, to go out and communicate, to cultivate and steward donors that they didn't have the bandwidth for it before, and now it's you have to if you want to survive in this environment.
So you see it from a grant funding perspective. You got it from individual donors, events like your fundraisers throughout the year. And what percentage would you say is there a fee for service contingent as well?
So the only thing that's really changed, so that it had always been everything was free, and I still like to do that wherever we can. The case manager, there's no cost for the family services side. That's just part of it. For the counseling side, which really shifted was the move to Medi-Cal. So being able to be part of CalAIM, because that's where the funding was going to get cut. And so if the funding is cut and now we need to charge for it, we don't want to still charge the individual. So we made sure we were certified under Medi-Cal so we can bill services back to the Medi-Cal agencies, and that would help supplement, which has been great. And then we learned that CalAIM, which is the big arm of Medi-Cal created an entire another division because they could see that it was being helpful when you serve people on enhancing the case management side of the house. And they came up with these programs. And so they really incentivized nonprofits to do it. It's a lot of work, especially when you don't have an accounting department. I had one person that had a finance background. And so, but I throw us in it because I thought if we don't, and that funding is gone completely, how do we survive?
And you're providing the service already.
Yep. So it took us over a year to get signed up to do the whole Medi-Cal side. And then we jumped into the ECM side, the enhanced case management. And that is a game changer for groups like us. That is where we can now bill, not the people, but we are billing Medi-Cal for all the services that we do for the individuals, helping them with housing, making sure they have all the resources they need. The whole goal is to keep them from being unhoused. So the more we can do in that world, there's a benefit to that. And that's what will sustain the nonprofits as we continue to go on. And these funds do get cut completely from counties and local agencies. Those that can't, we will see them dissipate because there's not. They won't have the bandwidth. They don't want the bandwidth, and so there may be more mergers, and there may be
consolidation.
Yep, and/or just loss of services.
Yes.
So I think that there's going to be two sides to what happens as we continue going on.
But what a brilliant way to go, because it does offset anything, and you survive.
Yes, and for us, it was
that.
big. It was a game changer for us to see the revenue stream that is now. We were doing all that work for all that time and never were compensated, and now being compensated for it, it allows me, to pay my people what they deserve to be paid. I can keep them longer, which is what you want. So we're not hitting just that 2-year mark and they all leave, which is the standard. And so to be able to have my longest running employee in the building has been there for 26 years.
Wow.
And she's amazing, and she loves what we do. Way before me, I can't take credit for her. But I do. The amount of what she's been able to help us with historical value and seeing the shift in services.
Equity, the intellectual equity she's got for the operation and the community and the people.
Yeah. So I've really only kept 6 people from the original staff that I walked into.
How many do you employ?
35.
You have 35 people? Wow.
So of that, 6 of them were who I took from the old team, but they're all still there. And that makes me super happy. And then a majority of the staff that I brought on when I started are still there. So we're going to have the shifts, in particular in my clinical team, because they come to us while they're in school, right? So usually they intern with us, and then as they're getting their hours, until they get licensed, then they're most of them move on to private practice.
Do their own thing, right?
Yeah. But so that's where our turnover really comes from, then that happens everywhere.
Right.
But a majority of my staff is, I think, having that consistency gives us a continuity of care for our folks. And that has been just a tremendous benefit for, that's right, I remember the Gonzaleses, or I remember the Smiths, and I've got it from here. So that's really helped when it comes to being able to find things.
The ease of access to those families is so much easier.
Yeah.
Plus, it saves time.
Big time.
And time is money in cases that you can or can't get to because you're overloaded.
Right. Well, it costs a lot less to keep your people than it is to rehire and retrain.
Yes, that too.
And so I think, that's been a big factor for us, and just kind of just changing the culture and the status of how we work. And it doesn't work for every organization. There's a lot, I've worked in several where it was far more corporate with how everything was working during the day. But this is so familial how we work anyway with the families. That's really how we are on the backside too, where it's more of a family setting where you care about every member in your staff because they do deal with trauma every single day. So to be there for one another and to walk it through and to talk with one another and to know they need mental health days and to really care about where their needs are when they walk out of the building is just as important as us taking care of the individuals coming to us. So that has really shifted quite a bit for our team too.
Let's dream for a second here. I know you've got some really exciting stuff that fits this question perfectly. Yeah. And let's say a donor, a philanthropic-minded individual of means comes in and says, "Hey, Debbie, I really like what you're doing with the organization. I've got a blank check for you." What would you do if that happened?
So we know that there are some major gaps in services. Placer County is so fortunate. There's so much there for families. But almost every county struggles with the 10 to 17 population. In fact, the 10 to 25 population.
Yeah, because we're seeing foster kids emancipate, and then what do we do?
And that's a big problem for us because, again, those kids, if we don't help them there, when they get to a point where they're creating families, we're going to have all their families too.
Correct.
So we really have looked at where the gaps are, and that 10 to 17 kids we struggle with because if they have any trauma at all, getting those kids to go into foster care, it doesn't happen. There's not enough that are willing to take on a kid that's got a trauma based with, or maybe they had an abuse problem earlier. They struggle. So they have 2 options. We either use the medical system and they're hospitalized, or they go to juvenile hall. Those are the 2 options that you have if there isn't anything else. And that really isn't helping because we're putting them in system. And once they're in the system, the probability that they land back in the system, even when they're out, is high 70s, low 80s. So our goal was, let's create something that keeps the kids out of the system. We were the crisis nursery in Placer County 25 years ago. They didn't build it to sustain, though, so it ended up closing. And so we really have done some due diligence to figure out what exactly does that look like? How can we be the place that is a respite for when mom and dad, if they haven't named someone to watch their kids, if something happens, lose a job, someone gets sick, whatever, that we could be that spot for, especially for these kids that have some trauma, so we don't put them in the system. We keep them for that little bit of time, and we'd like to be able to keep all kids, right? So there's so many restrictions right now that the facilities, well, only this type, say population, the families are split up.
Federal and state law has changed it dramatically.
If you're emancipated, nowhere to go. If you're coming out of the foster system, nowhere to go. So the internal part of the building would be this emergency setup, and then the back half of the property we would build out with AUDs for transitional housing for the kids coming out of foster care. So we would have more. Not that there aren't other agencies. There's not enough. So these kids are homeless because there just isn't enough. So if we can add to that and have more space for those kids and be an emergency shelter type of environment. And shelter's the wrong word, but an emergency facility that they can still do.
A place to go.
Yep, a place to go, that we can still have counseling, that you can have camaraderie, that there's be a shower, that there's warm food, whatever that looks like. We're still working out the particulars of really the needs assessment that comes along with it. But if we can fill that spot, even if we keep 100 kids out of the system, okay. That's 100 that become 100 families that then, the multiplication of that is just huge.
Not to mention the expense of it all when they come back in.
Yep. And so, our hospital partners all know the benefit of this. They're very excited for us to launch to this next part. I think our county partners are too. It's just finding the right formula. What is going to be that can stay funded, right? Because again, there's insurance issues, there's certification issues. Where is the biggest hurdle? We know that foster system is big, and there hasn't been a ton coming out with each administration change as to where it happens, but foster youth is going to be something that they're going to keep an eye on. So if we can help with that, okay, and we were really fortunate that we got gifted land. So
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
This dream is partially engaged already.
Yep.
So you've got the parcel, you've got the property. The next step is the facility, the building.
Yeah, and so that was when someone gifted us, what are you going to do with it?
Right.
It was, we weren't expecting it that early, but it has given my team that opportunity to dream a little and then be realistic with the dreams. So, you wake up and you're, okay, that's great, but what actually will work? So we've really been looking at the homes that are the temporary or the shelters or all the different spaces and say, okay, we like that. This is what's not working for them. And they've been really honest with us. Hey, we struggle with this, or this is working. Which homes now have closed and why, how the children's, receiving home here, where their struggles are. So if we could pick up on the pieces that people are having problems with and omit that before we start, then my whole goal is to leave something that is sustainable. I don't want to set it up, create it, and walk away. I really want it to be something that will live for, the next generation to have that facility. So we're just at the phase of creating. We were really fortunate. One of our partners, which is Kaiser, they meet with us every year and just touch base on the funding that they give us. And we were talking about this, and they gave us part of their team. That's their grad students, and they come in and they would help with programming and really teach your staff if they needed it. And when we talked a little bit more about this, and hey, we really could use some help on what that true needs assessment is, they were so excited. So to have them help us and back us on really getting that clear data that we're going to need to show this is the area that we need to be in was really exciting for us. So our ultimate goal is by the end of spring in 26 that we're ready to launch the campaign, and the building would be open by 28.
Wonderful.
So it would be huge. That is my dream. I'm going to get there.
You heard it here first on the Nonprofit Podcast Network that by 28 there will be a new facility in Placer County for Crisis Nursery.
Yeah. So it'll be Crisis Nursery, but it'll also be just a crisis center because it's going to be for kids all the way to 25. So that we'll be able to have that transitional housing for those kids coming out of the foster system, the crisis center that will be for anybody under 18. And then the littles, we wanted to keep a space for the littles because we know there's still that need for the nursery part. Yep. So to encompass all of it without stretching ourselves ultimately too thin.
Back to the reality of operations today. What is the greatest need?
Wow.
Let me count the ways, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I think my team has to pay attention to the news every day. And as something changes, if you don't pay attention, you don't know what's coming. And so, I think a lot of folks, SNAP, perfect example. when SNAP hit, and yes, we were so excited that they were able to redo that, but that 14 days that it was down, families had to make a decision. If I don't have food on the table, how do I feed my child? So where am I going to get the money from? Then I'm not going to pay my rent, or I'm not going to pay the utility bill. So we started to see those insecurities like creep within a week. The amount that we put out the door to help with, we didn't want anybody unhoused. I don't want a child living in a house without power or water. So those calls came in floodgates, making sure our families stay secure. I think every administration has its own sense of insecurity. People are just unsure of where uncertainties, where things are happening. So I don't think politics has anything to play in it. But I think paying attention to what movement is happening, and each county, again, has different components, each city inside the county. So we really pay attention to what's happening in that moment, and that becomes the greatest need for right then. So right now it's keeping those families that are vulnerable, and they are beyond vulnerable right now. Keeping them whole that's where we're putting a majority of our energy, because we also know financial insecurity is the number one reason for abuse. So if we can help keep them stable, then we mitigate. Right. So if the more we can do around that, the better. So, simple things such as making sure that we aren't a food bank, but we made sure that we had 100, and we worked with two different rancher who came in and brought us 150 boxes of produce that we were able to give out to those families right before Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving dinners, finding the families who need the most help at Christmas time, because again, they don't have the means, but parents feel like a failure if they can't give their kids something. Right. So, where I think in the past we've had a couple hundred, 350 that are walking through our doors this week for their, to do that. That isn't even, I could have done double that and still not hit all of our families. But I think the community comes out for that part is when you talk about a child. It's just not usually, most folks don't get the warm fuzzies about talking about child abuse. So
and that's not going to change. We happen to be recording it, so Christmas is imminent. It's a couple weeks away. But that still is going to be that need as we get into the beginning of the year. Then we're going to get into back to school, same situation, financial insecurity.
The toys are one thing. That's great that we're able to enjoy. But really so as we talk to companies that were excited and we've felt that we had these families secure, my next pitch was, I need coats, I need pajamas, I need socks, because these are the basic needs is what they're needing. We go through the amount of cards we give to Walmart for the grocery store, or to Safeway, or to any grocery store, we give that out all month long, the amount of rent. And so, and I think January and February are really our worst months, because they have done what they needed.
It's already done, right?
Yep. So now they don't have the funds. And so it's that's why those financial literacy classes are so important. It really helps them takes that shame away, and to really feel, okay, in your means, and here's where you are. And maybe if you look at these groups, they can help with that. So you're not touching the primary that's going to keep your family whole.
Right.
It's just that, especially the families that have the teens, where the kids now know.
Right.
And those are the families that have the harder time than the kids with the littles that you can do a Susie Homemaker doll, and they're happy.
Thrilled.
Yeah.
Right.
But when they're 14
Mommy and Daddy
and 15,
are home. This is great.
Yes, totally. But to have a family living in a car when your kid's in high school, it's just
not going to work.
No.
Over the course of the 3 years that you've been there, have you seen a shift in that greatest need?
Again, I think we're seeing more and more of the uncertainty part has definitely played a toll. Or maybe we concentrated quite a bit on the education, which we still do, as the Forever Fathers group that we do, and the co-parenting classes that we have, and we've created a few others, and some of the support groups. That has become, they ask for more. And that, I think that's a shift for us, for sure. I think at the beginning it was folks came because they had to, a lot of cases, on the support education side, and even on the counseling side a lot of times. But the family resource part, we see those families staying a little longer, and not necessarily because they're hoping to gain something. It's more of the support, right? Is that piece has been greater. And usually we start to see like a shift. If we are seeing, right now we have more of the single moms, or really a shift has been on the domestic violence side. A lot of times the mom has never worked. She was a stay-at-home mom. You stay if there's nothing else to do. They don't have, and so we've had far more of that. We've had bigger families. We've had more. The abuse and the stories that come in are really heavy. And I think that has shifted a great deal, where it's not just 12 weeks of sessions and we can help you get through this communication you're having with Bobby. Mm-hmm. That's just not the case anymore. It really has been, what happened to your kid in that particular time, or the schools are being more cognizant as well if they hear a story on the playground that they were all mandated reporters. So just looking at the level of how many CPS reports are given to the county in a month, how many of those families come our way.
Child Protective Services,
Child
CPS.
Protective Services, yep. So when that occurs, so if any story that occurs, the reports are done and they're put in levels. So they're for level 1, which could be there's this thought, perhaps there could be an issue. Can you go out and check with the family and hand them a pamphlet? Or they know that there's something going on in the next level and you bring a social worker and you go out and you need to come in. Mm-hmm. That has shifted dramatically. And I think that, again, when I talk about Family Resource Center and the counseling, that's a whole piece of that. Our staff probably spends 25 to 30% of their time going out to the homes to make sure that we're touching with those families and connecting to them and trying to get them engaged and ensure that they are coming back in for those kiddos. But I think what they need is so much greater. Or maybe they feel a little more secure in asking for it than they did before, or they don't feel as judged, and so they're asking for more supports than what we were giving before. It was pretty much, here's this handoff, and away they went. And now we do see them staying a little longer and asking for additional supports.
In the grand scheme of things, that could be a good thing, too, because they recognize we need to stick around.
Yeah. If anything that we're doing, that mitigation factor is what, to me, I think that's the reward that comes out of it. That's, to me, the impact that we're really seeing we can see a shift in the kiddo. They can see that grades at school are changing. One of the modalities of therapy we do is called PCIT. It's parent-child interaction therapy. Most of those kids come from the school. So if you've got a kiddo with ADD or ADHD, or they're really just struggling in the classroom, those kids come in and we have the two-glassed wall. Therapy on one side, mom on the other side, or dad, whoever. And the goal is to get that child to be able to go back into the classroom and actually day-to-day like all his classmates. And that we've seen a huge pickup there. But we also, I love that. I love that they're coming and that we can help that. And so those kids actually, you don't see as much then on the playground and their outbursts that are coming to play with that. But that's a 4 to 5 month program. So it's, once we really have started to see length of time the families are with us. So they get to know us a little bit more. We get to know them a little bit more. And now we really can see where the inequities are in their family. And I think that's where our staff really picks up on, I can see this is coming. Let's see what we can do to help. Hey, you know what? We've got this class coming up. Would that be of interest to you? So we've done coffee clutches for moms where English is a second language and getting them to all be together in a support group, having more of those classes, anything we can offer that we see that if we start seeing 6 or 7 families with similar things coming up, then we'll create a focus group or a support group or class specific. And then they come in and we can start to see that dissipate, which is great. So I think it's really us staying in tune with where the needs are. And it shifts depending on the time of the year, depending on what's happening globally or nationally or locally, changes regularly. So it's to say that it's the same this year to last year or this for 6 months ago, every month can be up and down for where the needs are coming in from.
Let's shift to something a little bit personal for a second. And this is kind of fun.
Sure.
You've got a lot of responsibility on your shoulders, as many of our nonprofit leaders do, and it tends to stay with you all the time because you can't not see what needs to be done.
Right.
How do you relax, refresh, regroup? What do you do?
Well, my husband actually works in Reno during the week. So we're apart 3 days every week. And so it's nice when we're together. It is quality time. And we really both try our hardest to take our work stuff and tuck it away for a little bit of time so we have that quality time. So we do a lot of hiking, just activities where it is just us because we try to make the most out of all the time. We've been together for a really long time, so it was probably not a bad thing when we started this. But, after 36 years, we're still,
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah. It works for us. And so, but I do think anything that we can do we have to make the time to say, I got to put that away. I also have 2 grandbabies. And so to be able to.
Congratulations.
Thank you. To see them, I think that's become my why. My kids are grown, and I really felt that I was in a world that helped shape them and felt they had a good start. And now these littles are here, and it's more prevalent than ever to ensure that the world they're going to grow up in is a little better than how I got it. And that's, I think about that. So I really enjoy my time with them and kind of try to think of, have I done enough for them on that side or others like that in our little community? So I just enjoy spending time with my family. I enjoy being outdoors. And I like volunteering for other organizations where it's just not mine, so you can do good somewhere else too. And it just makes you feel good about it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is just wonderful. What's the best way to learn more about Kids First?
Our website is a great resource. So it's www.kidsfirstnow.org. We do a newsletter that goes out every month. We have information there. Our staff, you can always pop in and we'd sit down and chat with you about it. All our classes are posted on there. All the resources we provide, all the different levels and types of counseling we have are on there. Every program that we have is there as well. And I always have staff that will walk folks around and kind of show them what the facilities look like. So,
and we'll put that in the show notes too, so anybody can find it with the phone number and everything. So
our phone number is 916-774-6802.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So 2 ways to connect.
Absolutely.
As hard as it is for me to believe we're having this conversation for a third time with very different circumstances, I'm so proud of what's transpired with Kids First since that first episode that we did during the pandemic, and how it's come through and not only survived, but it is actually now thriving and growing considerably. Sadly, for the wrong reason, but we need you.
Yeah.
And it's just that significant. So to you and your team and for all that you do for those kids and families in Placer County, thank you so much.
It's my privilege to be able to do this for these families. And I think to your point, it makes me sad that there's a need for what we do. But I am so grateful that we're there for these families. And we were talking about this the other day when it came to at a county meeting, and I said I almost feel like we're in the movie Scrooge, where you have to sit back and think, well, what would it look like if we weren't here? And what would it look like if this one wasn't here? And how do we make sure that we're watching each other's backs, that we either merge correctly and thoughtfully, and or that we take care of maybe the small ones that you really do need them. I can't pick up that piece of work, So I think being cognizant for the community as a whole is ever changing and is a constant perpetual movement forward, is to pay attention to what the needs are for the people in the community.
Well, your passion shows.
Love it.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it again.
And again, right?
And again, for letting us come back and be able to share.
And I can't wait to hear about the Crisis Center,
Me too.
2028.
Yes. Yeah. Hopefully we'll have enough to share by late spring and just to be able to announce everything. So that's a big push right now.
Fingers crossed.
Yes. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Deb.
Thank you for listening to the Nonprofit Podcast Network. We hope today's episode inspired you and gave you a deeper look into the work of our local nonprofits. If you believe in our mission to amplify their voices, please take a moment to leave us a positive review and share this episode with a friend. It helps more people discover the incredible work happening in our community. And don't miss future episodes. Subscribe to our weekly updates and monthly newsletter at nonprofpod.com. And if you're part of a nonprofit that would like to be featured, we'd love to hear from you. Just visit the Guests tab on our website. The Nonprofit Podcast Network is recorded and produced at Hear Me Now Studio with generous support from our outstanding partners. CapTrust, fiduciary advice for endowments and foundations. Online at captrust.com. Western Health Advantage, local care with community impact. Find the plan that fits at westernhealth.com. CORE, executive leadership and comprehensive support services. Visit cxore.com. And 5 Star Bank, a local trusted advisor to community nonprofits for over 25 years. 5starbank.com.